like to call to order the June 11, 2019 work session of the Maywood Mayor Council to order at 7:44 p.m.
Everyone please rise and join me in the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
On January 3, 2019, adequate notice of this meeting pursuant to the Open Public Meetings Act had been furnished by inclusion thereof in the annual schedule of meetings for 2019, which has been posted on the bulletin board at Borough Hall, filed with the Borough Clerk, faxed to our town, the Record, and the Community News newspaper, and distributed to all persons, if any, requesting copies of same pursuant to said act. In case of an emergency or fire alarm, you must evacuate the building by using any of the exit doors in the room. They are immediately to my right and the double doors to the rear of the room. Occupants must exit the building by using the staircase and not the elevator. This meeting is being recorded by both video and audio and may be rebroadcasted.
Roll call.
On roll call, Mayor Fabry.
Here.
Council members Bennon.
Here.
Boland.
Here.
Ullman.
Here.
Trevino.
Here.
Lindenau.
Present.
Garofalo.
Here.
Borough Attorney Breyer Ironman.
Here.
Borough Administrator Roberta Stern.
Here.
Borough Clerk Barbara Dispoto here. We have a quorum.
Okay. We have the adoption of the 2019 municipal budget. Hearing of pending ordinances.
We have ordinance 11-19, calendar year 2019, ordinance to exceed the municipal budget appropriation limits and to establish a cash bank per NJSA 48:4-45.14.
Okay, at this point, I'd like to open the meeting to the public for any comments or questions regarding the foregoing ordinance. Seeing none? Oh, sorry, John, come on.
John Brown, 41 Stelling Avenue. I'd like to acknowledge the council, the CFO, the borough administrator, the mayor. These people come up with a budget of 0.0 has been advertised, and that's pretty incredible. As one taxpayer, I really thank you all for doing that. This is not a flash in the pan either. I went back to the records and looked since the re-estimate of the town about 7 years ago. And if you look at it on a compound annual growth rate, this is like less than 1%. So this is not something you just did. And I also should acknowledge the people who served on this recently, on this council. You all deserve an applause for doing that. I know people pay in dollars, and you always hear your neighbors complain about, oh, the taxes are going up. Yes. And look at your Social Security, it went up. And look at your, if you're still working, look at your salaries. And look at your 401ks. Yes, things are going up. But relative to the percents and inflation, that's where the rubber meets the road. And again, thank you very much.
Anyone else in the public wishing to be heard? With regard to this, seeing none, I will take a motion for the adoption. So moved. Is there a second? Second. Roll call.
On roll call, Bennett.
Yes.
Boland.
Yes.
Ullman.
Yes.
Trevino.
Yes.
Lindenau.
Yes.
Garofalo.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Resolutions by title?
Okay, wait. Be it resolved by the Mayor and Council of the Borough of Maywood that ordinance 11-19 be and is hereby passed upon second and final reading, and that the Borough Clerk is hereby authorized and directed to advertise the same according to the law. Resolution 116-19, reading of the 2019 municipal budget by title only.
Is there a motion for the adoption? So moved. Is there a second? Second. Roll call.
On roll call, Bennett.
Yes.
Boland.
Yes.
Ullman.
Yes.
Trevino.
Yes.
Lindenau.
Yes.
Garofalo.
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right, at this point, I'd like to open the meeting to the public for any comments or questions relative to the 2019 municipal budget. I think John just jumped the gun on that one, but that's okay.
I jumped the gun.
It's all right. We'll just enter your comments into the record as of now. Anyone else like to be heard? Seeing no one?
I
What?
you opening to the public?
Oh, yes, sorry, I'm
Are
sorry.
you opening to the public later?
With regard to, this is just, yes,
The budget,
yes, ma'am.
okay.
This is just with regard to that one resolution. When these are on, I'm sorry, I can't really see out there. Okay, seeing no one, we have, resolution 117-19.
Resolution 117-19, adoption of the 2019 municipal budget.
Is there a motion for the adoption?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Roll call.
On roll call, Bennett,
Yes.
Boland,
Yes.
Almond,
Yes.
Trevino,
Yes.
Lindenau,
Yes.
Garofalo.
Yes.
Be it resolved by the Mayor and Council of the Borough of Maywood, County of Bergen, that the budget herein before set forth is hereby adopted.
All right, public hearings. We have the 2019 Bergen County Open Space Trust Fund grant application. At this point, I'm going to open the meeting to the public with regard to this. If you have any comments or questions relative to the 2019 Open Space Trust Fund grant for obtaining a matching grant of $9,450 for the installation of sunshades at Memorial Park in Cleveland Field. Just with regard to that, any questions? Okay. Mr. Bland, please come up. Mr. Martinez, any questions? If you wouldn't mind sticking around until after the public meeting, I'd appreciate it. Absolutely.
Honorable Mayor and Council, we issued an engineer's report dated the 3rd for tonight's meeting. I'll briefly go through each of the individual topics. The first is the Maywood Avenue Streetscape Phase 2. On May 29th, we held a meeting with the project contractor, our office, and the police department, along with the majority property owner, to review and discuss the project schedule and the construction improvements. Contractors informed us and has distributed notices. Construction will proceed tomorrow, and we'll continue at that point in time. The next item on the list is, and I'll go through them as a group, the year 2018 road improvement program, and also the year 2018 road improvement program Phase 2. All construction's completed, documents are being received from the contractor, and then we'll be closing that project out. The Palmer Avenue and West Passaic Street roadway crossing the bus stop and the Palmer Avenue DOT municipal aid grant project. We submitted a letter to the state on May 1st. We require a letter stating that the project's been accepted. Once that letter is received from the state, we'll be submitting documents to close the project out municipally, and then we'll file the DOT closeout documents so that the borough can receive the remainder of its grant funding related to that project. The next item on the list is the flood damage prevention ordinance. I know we've been working with the borough attorney and also the borough administrator and clerk to file the draft ordinance. There'll also be a letter that'll be forthcoming from the DEP. At that point in time, then the borough would move forward.
It just turns out I just got the email from the DEP at 5:07 today. They have changes. I will forward it.
Good. So then the changes would be made, and then the governing body would need to move forward with the adoption of that ordinance so that flood insurance program can be maintained for the borough. The next item on the list is the 2019-2020 DOT municipal aid grant. We'll be filing on behalf of the borough a project which would be Palmer Avenue from its intersection with Mendez to its northern terminus, and then we'll also be addressing, I know the governing body had some questions as related to a push-button sign at the intersection where the bus stop is and Passaic Street. We'll be filing as part of that grant application that improvement. The next item on the list is the DPW building and senior center emergency generators. The borough had received a FEMA grant, was looking for its funding associated with their grant funding. The borough was informed that it needed to require air quality permits. We submitted those permits on behalf of the borough so that the borough could receive the remainder of its grant funding.
Which we received.
Great, great. The next item on the list is the 2019 road improvement program. We've been proceeding with the surveying and design of that project. The project will be broken into two separate. One will be for a separate bid for the Gulf Avenue project, and then the remainder of the roadways will be in a second bid. And the reason that those two will be broken up in two separate projects is Gulf Avenue's DOT money. There's a 30-day review schedule as it relates to bidding the project. We don't want to delay all of the roadways. We thought it was best to separate that out so that the borough could proceed with those roadways, and then golf would be bid accordingly, would be constructed approximately 30 days after those roadways. That concludes the report. I'd be glad to address any questions or comments that the governing body had, though.
Are there any questions for the engineers?
Very good. Just a question about the roadway improvements. I think a few years back, we passed complete streets.
Sure.
Has that been taken into consideration with our improvement plan?
What it does is Complete Streets aids in the application process with respect to securing grant funding from the DOT. So we've been supplying information within the grant packages as it relates to that, so that the borough does have the ability to acquire additional funding if those resources are made available from the state.
So we've been considering pedestrian safety and bicycling safety when we're doing these plans?
As it relates to the roadways that are selected, correct, yes. Yeah.
Anyone else?
Just have a quick question, follow-up on the Phase 1 for Maywood.
Sure.
Did we ever find out why they use different color pavers by any chance?
Well, as it relates to that, we've been informed actually that during one project, there was somebody had informed us now that the pavers were removed by either a resident or someone in the area had taken those pavers, and then they were replaced with different pavers so that to try to fit within the streetscape. So now we'll be addressing that as part of the Phase 2 project.
What had happened, from my understanding, is that because we were stockpiling the pavers that came out, this individual thought they weren't being used, so she decided to take them, and then we don't know how long that went on, but the day that somebody observed it, she was stopped from taking them, but we could not go back and get what she had taken before.
We'll be addressing that as part of...
Just like people who pull flowers out of the flower pots because they have nothing else to do, as they walk by in that particular part of town in particular, they just seem to take things out because they want to.
We'll make sure that's addressed as part of the Phase 2
We're
part
trying
of the
to, as it happens, because this is a product that is produced not all at the same time, just like if you get fabric for your curtains or something else you're doing in your house, if you don't buy it all at the same time, the next batch may not be the same color. And we were out there trying to match for the next streetscape, and nothing really matches, but we did the best we can. And it's on the other side of the railroad tracks, so hopefully it won't be that big a deal.
I don't know how you make that up.
We'd have to have cameras at everyone's house in every street corner to catch people who are doing these things. But her answer was, well, I don't think you needed it, so we took it.
Okay.
Wow.
All righty. Any other questions for the engineer? Greg, would you mind sticking
Be glad
around?
to. Be glad to.
Thank you, sir. Okay, at this point, I'd like to open the meeting up to the public. Anyone from the public that you heard, please come on up.
Hildegard Amsler, 65 Edgewood Place. It's good to see that the new striping was finally done near the Delta gas station at Passaic, and that the opportunity was seized to move the bus stop out of the lane of traffic. However, there is no pedestrian crosswalk marking from east to west at Palmer as it abuts Passaic, and it just seems like a very bizarre omission. How come there's no marking there?
You mean street, you mean sign?
I mean, people are getting off at the bus stop, they want to get to the new crosswalk, they're going to have to cross Palmer, and there's no crosswalk marking.
Are you talking about on the ground? I mean,
What?
Are you saying on the ground or
Yeah,
sign?
striping, the crosswalk striping. There's no striping there. I mean, it's unbelievable that one was done and nothing was done on the other. I mean, it's...
I'm sorry. I'm not...
I'll make you a map and leave it tomorrow.
I'm not seeing what you're saying in my head.
Okay, there's no marking.
On Palmer,
If you get off the bus stop.
in between Maywood Market and Tom's Tom Ives' office of what.
Oh, is it crossing to?
Okay,
so you're not
Crossing Palmer. Crossing Palmer from
Okay.
east to west or west to east, depending upon where you're going, there is no marking. I mean, how could that not have been done at the same time when the one across Passaic was done?
I don't know the answer to that, but.
Well,
we should probably-
I mean-
the one on
Look into
Passaic
that.
Street was a county project,
Okay.
and I don't remember it ever coming up about a crosswalk going the other way. We had issues with the line of sight, and as Mr. Pliniak mentioned today,
Yeah.
or just a little while ago, part of the new project that we're doing with Palmer includes some additional funding to do the other notifications crossing Passaic Street. We haven't discussed crossing Palmer, quite frankly,
Not a bad idea.
so it's something for us to look
Yeah,
into, but
absolutely not a bad
it never
idea.
came up before.
Okay.
It was, a major thing was that crossway
Yeah.
over Passaic
Yeah,
Street.
but to get to that, you've got to cross Palmer.
Yeah,
Well-
it's a good idea to. get
Okay,
that done.
But
I
it
mean-
just wasn't brought up as
Yeah,
part of this
okay.
project.
Well, that's,
Hopefully that will be addressed
Hopefully it
before
will.
somebody, okay? Also, I somehow was under the impression there was going to be a pedestrian safety committee. A lot of things were floated last year after the demise of Mr. John up at Spring Valley, and it seems like not much has happened, even up there, because, yes, you have some pedestrian in motion walking signs, but if you exit Chase Bank, and across from that is a bus stop, and you're making a left turn going east, there is no signage that tells you that these 4 lanes, which look kind of like a highway, if you're from out of the area, it's not unreasonable to think that it's 35 or 40 miles. There's no sign that says it's 25 until you're almost... just take a look at it, because the sign is as you make the turn from Spring Valley to Spring Valley, but you're not going to see that if you're making a turn to the left to the east coming out by Chase Bank. And we have, I'm sure, a lot of people out of area shopping, exiting there, and there's not a sign that gives them a clue until they've already, sped way down the roadway. It begs to be addressed. So I hope some consideration will be given to that. And I'm also noticing that a lot of towns have gotten very involved and have taken advantage of different grants for different programs for pedestrian safety. And it's not happening here. We have 2 major streets that beg to be reduced to 25 miles an hour, namely Passaic and Central. And I don't hear any discussion about that, any interest in it. It begs to be done. I know those are county roads, but Kinderkamack is a major thoroughfare county, and Oradell now has taken most of Kinderkamack, not just that small area from years ago, but most of it now is brought down to 25 miles an hour. And up in Hillsdale Broadway, a goodly chunk of that has also been reduced to 25 miles an hour. So you wouldn't have to be pioneers. Others have already done this. And I just don't understand why we're allowing, because who is speeding down these streets? It's out-of-towners. I don't know why we're allowing those streets to be used as highways. Admittedly, during rush hour, it's creep and crawl, but there are other times of the day. They're not even doing 35, unfortunately. So I'm just hoping some attention will be given to all of this, okay? Because what happened last year was terrible, and hopefully it doesn't happen again in Maywood. But I just don't see anything really of consequence being done so that it doesn't happen again. And I think a committee would be a good idea. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public wishing to be heard? Seeing none, close the meeting to the public. Correspondence and report of the Borough Clerk.
Progress.
Thank you. Report of the Borough Administrator.
Mayor, I only have a couple of things in closed session, both personnel and for COA issues.
Yep.
And other than that, pool is open and doing well. The weather's been cooperating on the weekends, and we've had a nice turnout for the last few weekends at the pool.
Thank you. You know what? I'm going to jump the gun and speak just because I'm going to allow Chuck. You good? Okay. All right, then I won't jump. I don't want Chuck to be here for what I have to say. Committee reports. Councilperson Dan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Nothing to report.
So you did progress. From now on, if we don't have to say, we just say progress. We just gave us I love that, progress. Progress. Thank you. Councilman Bowman.
Progress.
All right. We are progressing. Councilman Holman.
Progress.
Cool.
Wow, not much going on, huh?
Councilman Jarrett.
Progress.
Councilman Lindenau.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Real quick, the Maywood Wellness Challenge has to date logged in over 20 million steps, blowing away our goal of 15 million. And one more day to go. Tomorrow is the last day, 7 p.m., up at the park at the flagpole, if anybody wants to participate. That's all I have.
Very good. Council President Garofalo.
Progress.
All right.
I know that's a surprise.
It's a pleasant one.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
All right, just briefly. I had some comments about the budget. Chuck, I think for this. This year's budget is another historic one for Maywood, and I'm very proud of the fact that the 2019 budget not only has a 0% increase, but results in a surplus of $4 million, the largest the borough has ever seen. With this being my last budget, I'd like to take some time to go into the importance of not only this year's budget, but the prior financial policies that helped us get here. In fact, this budget is the culmination of 8 years of sound financial planning. From the beginning of this administration, which I consider to have started 8 years ago, we set out to establish a clear path of fiscal responsibility, and I just want to take time to thank everyone who supported and contributed to that vision over these years. The planning started back when I was council president with Mayor Padavano and continued right up until today. The hard work and planning has kept us on a path where the average budget increase over the last 8 years was less than 1%. And John, you mentioned that. With increasing surpluses each and every year. The importance of a strong budgetary surplus cannot be stressed enough. It affects the town's bond rating, which has been increased for Maywood twice during the 8-year span, which allows the community to have the ability to finance larger projects and provide increased services while not overburdening the taxpayer. And in Maywood's case, we were actually able to refinance our prior debt and get a much better interest rate due to our excellent financial health, which further reduces the burden on the Maywood taxpayer by reducing the cost of debt service. Again, I am very proud of this budget. When this administration started, we had two goals: eliminate petty politics and get the borough's finances under control, because quite frankly, we knew that we wouldn't be able to accomplish the latter without the former. I am extremely proud to say that working together, we have accomplished both. Obviously, it is the hard work of the CFO and bond counsel that helped put these budgets together, and quite frankly, none of these budgets would have been possible without Roberta there to put our policies into practice each and every day. But I want to really stress that the ideas and vision of these budgets were the product of the hard work of the volunteers that sat up here with me for the past 8 years. Each of the budgets under this administration received bipartisan support and were the culmination of a unified governing body. And so I want to thank every council member, Republican and Democrat, who contributed to the fiscal stability and well-being of our borough throughout my time on the council. First and foremost, I want to thank former Mayor Greg Padavano for everything he did to help set the tone on this council, and then former council members Al Ballerini, Dr. Frank Meglio, Marion Oriema, Eric Fleischman, Jack Savage, Derek Eisenberg, Rick DeHare, Frank Messer, Frank Maroney, and Claire Padavano. And then a special thanks to my current colleagues, Ryan, Matthew, Mike, and Tom, and certainly to Rich and Catherine for your support on this year's budget. Regardless of political party affiliation, we were able to put together these budgets, which were the backbone of the accomplishments that we have achieved during these last 8 years. Together, and I'm happy to say that this community is on sound financial footing for the future. So with that, thank you all, and we move on to action item lists, which we have none. Chuck, right, you guys, you want to see what's going on for that couple minutes, but otherwise, you guys can come on. Thank you again, Chuck. We have no resignations, we have no appointments. council approval of the following. Number one, we have Bacon Bagels request for an outdoor dining permit. Construction official has reviewed and approved the application for June 6, 2019. Is there a motion for the approval?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Roll call.
On roll call, Bennett?
Yes.
Foley?
Yes.
Almond?
Yes.
Trevino?
Yes.
Lindenau?
Yes.
Garafalo?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Once again, resolution by title.
Resolution 118-19, resolution for approval to submit a grant application and execute a grant contract with the New Jersey Department of Transportation for Palmer Avenue roadway and bus stop crossing improvements project. Resolution 119-19, renewal of 2019-2020 liquor license. Resolution 120-19, resolution authorizing the Borough of Maywood tax collector to prepare and mail estimated tax bills in accordance with PL 1994, Chapter 74. Resolution 121-19, resolution authorizing Nigley Engineering to provide professional services for NJDEP air quality permit and permitting fees for the emergency generators at the DPW and Senior Center. Resolution 122-19, resolution accepting the proposal for third-party administrator, TPA, services and appointing insurance design administrators, IDA, to adjudicate medical plan variances. Resolution 123-19, resolution for the appointment of Janice Sampanero as an administrative assistant within the Department of Finance of the Borough of Maywood, and Resolution 124-19, resolution for the appointment of Charles Cuccia as treasurer for the Borough of Maywood.
Is there a motion for the adoption of resolutions? Is there a second?
On roll call.
Discussion.
Wait one second.
Sorry. So,
No, it's okay.
our salary ordinance for the treasurer actually caps the amount that we can give to the treasurer to $6,000. So are we proposing to amend our salary ordinance today?
Well, at this point, I would imagine it's just, this wouldn't be a full year's number anyway, so he wouldn't breach that number. this
Exactly.
year. So I guess that would probably,
And just,
we would have to do that though.
we will, but we will have to, in January at least,
Okay.
make changes to the salary ordinance. There are other salaries right now that are already breaching that. I had mentioned that we thought we had covered 3 or 4 years,
Yes.
and apparently that didn't get into the last one that we did in January of 18, but since it's only half a year, it doesn't change anything.
Bert, are you making, obviously, but you're making notes of the...
Yeah, absolutely. I had notes for an increase, it just never got done.
Okay.
Because I tried to, the last time, include 4 years of 2% raises, which was the average of what we did for non-union
Gotcha.
employees, and somehow it never got into the last
Okay.
ordinance.
All right, well, we'll do better this time. All right, so we, those discussions, is there further discussion? Okay. Roll call.
On roll call, Bennett?
Yes.
Foley?
Yes.
Almond?
Yes.
Trevino?
Yes.
Lindenau?
Yes.
Garafalo?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, we have no ordinances to introduce. Council, do we have any new business?
Yes. Sorry. Blank out.
You're making up for your...
Yeah, I'm going to make up for
Your progress.
everything else.
I had something in mind and I forgot, sorry.
So I wanted to bring up a few things that if people wanted to discuss it. The first one being Pride Flag. A lot of towns are putting up Pride flags in the month of June. And I think, we do a lot of things in this town. We're a very inclusive community, and so I thought it would be wise to maybe do something at the next meeting. I'm not sure if folks would be interested in that.
What's the will of the council?
I would be.
I
will happily donate it. So, well, I don't think we would probably not need to wait for the next council meeting. I mean, something was already there.
I'm sorry, Mayor, I can't hear you.
It was the council president brought up...
No, I know what it was, I just didn't hear your comment.
I don't see, we don't have to wait till the next meeting. for that.
No,
We all
I don't think so either, we just have to order them if that's what everybody wants to do.
Yes.
save the borough money.
There we go.
Donation. Well, there we go.
And more, but wait, there's more. One of the things in our ordinances is regarding comp time and overtime, and I think that we need to formalize that process with folks. And so, at my place of business, we actually have a form that has to be approved by our supervisor. So the idea would be to do something like that with overtime and comp time for our the third floor employees.
Well, a number of years ago, we had a time clock, and it wasn't working out that well because people were clocking in when they first walked in the morning, but they actually weren't working. They were clocking in because they got here early.
Bert, I don't mean to interrupt. I'm just curious. What's the process now?
Process now is that people have to ask me if they can use, I approve overtime, and if they want to use it for comp as opposed to getting paid, then I approve that.
Do you get something is something in writing?
Yeah, all my time sheets and the sheets that I do for payroll
So
every...
what the council president's asking is just that they would come necessarily to you with something in writing.
And do it prior to them taking the overtime.
Yeah, well, that's right. Is that what's happening? Like, do they take it and then come to you after?
No,
how's that
pretty
work?
much I know what they're doing. I mean, we have certain people who
small.
always... Right, we have very few people who are in that category.
Okay.
We allowed comp time, which had not been approved before. We've allowed that. And in order to do that, there are certain people who have certain positions that require them to be here after 4:30, and I know what they are, so that there's no mystery. There's only 3 people outside, maybe 2 out of 11.
Just so the public knows really quick, what we're talking about is like SID meetings, there's an individual that has to be there from town, rec meetings, like it's usually the meetings in town that the individual from that position...
Who has that position has to go outside of 8:30 to 4:30.
So that's what we're talking about.
And the reason we did away with the time clock was previously people were getting paid for 15 minutes because they happened to walk in at 8:15 instead of 8:30. They weren't working, they were just here. So we did away with that and
Right.
changed...
I'm more just talking about like the rec meeting that's at 7 to 9, or the, whatever's going on outside of those 8:30
Right.
to 4:30 hours.
Right.
It's also to protect you a little bit, Roberta, in that you could technically have somebody say that, I was supposed to get this many hours. So if we have it in writing beforehand and it's all approved.
Well-
I don't see a problem with getting something in writing. The only issue would be this then. Now,
Let me just say...
Well, one second, don't lose that. My thought is, what happens if Roberta approves her with one individual? Let's not use anybody.
Right,
but
anybody.
Let's use one person. You're approved for 1 hour, but the meeting goes to 2.5 hours. Then what happens?
Right, I think then it would be up to Roberta to decide, if to give that extra time.
Which is what I still do, because in some cases, I will say to that person, you did not have to stay for the whole time.
Right.
Okay.
I mean,
But I think that would be up to you. If you approve 1 hour and the person stays for 2.5 hours, that would be up to you.
Right, which is where it is now. I mean, I don't disagree with having more structure, it's just that we're a very small group of people, and that nobody is...
I don't think the council president saying anyone's taking advantage. I think what I think one of the issues came up with is when there was a question of, well, what kind of hours are we talking about? And if there's nothing in writing, say for next year for review, if we had something in like a piece of paper, so then you could look back at all the, without having to do a search in finance, you could just look back at all the sheets.
But I do have it in payroll.
You do have it in payroll?
I have it in my own book.
Okay.
So if somebody, and I could show it to you so you know what I'm talking about, if somebody puts something in their timesheet, I ask them to verify it for me, and then I put it down on the back of their timesheet, and if they accumulate a certain amount of hours, then I allow them to use it where they need it. And most people, quite frankly, want to get paid for that time, but again, I haven't had anybody abuse it. So I'm happy to, to
Do
look
you
at
see an
whichever
issue
way
with
you
it?
want to
Do you
deal
see
with
there
it.
should be- Do you see any problem with having something, just do me a favor?
No, but I already do, I kind of already do that.
So you get something?
Yeah, because if I know somebody has a meeting, they'll tell me, I have
Yeah.
such and such, like, a
Right,
parti-
verbally is one thing, but there could be misunderstandings. I think if you have it in writing, it's a control, right, for both.
listen, I have no problem with that. All I'm saying, it hasn't been an issue, but I have no problem with it. If you would rather have something where they get approval ahead of time for it, I have no
That's
problem
where our
with it.
ordinance says that they're supposed to get prior approval from the borough administrator.
Right. I don't have a problem with that. I don't think it needs to be a written policy so much as a policy that we adhere to, and there's no reason. It doesn't apply to more than 2 people out of our entire staff.
Something that would be onerous to...
No, not at all. No, not at all.
So what are your thoughts on that? What do you think? What are we thinking? Have them sign something, so Roberta has to sign off on it, or... I mean, if it's only a couple of people, I guess it's a handing sheet, I don't know.
Are they gonna have to decide ahead of time if they want comp time or?
What happens now, Roberta?
Well, generally, because there's only 1 or 2 people, I know who wants to count time, and I know who wants to get paid for it.
Okay.
So there's only, frankly, 2 people who have positions outside of the normal workday that this applies to. So I've never had an issue.
And then that could be part of...
Can you speak up just when that's- when that's
The wonderful
on?
air conditioning. So that could be part of the form where you're approving whether it's comp or overtime, so that it's very clear to people which one it is. We could also budget for it if you wanted to in the future.
Again, I have no problem. It's
Yeah.
just never been an issue.
Well, and the other thing is why it might be beneficial is that it allows individuals who might necessarily forget that this is what they're getting.
Right.
To be able to
But
be
you see-
reminded that, hey, at the end of the year, this is what you've got.
Everybody has a timesheet.
Yes.
On that timesheet, when I approve payroll, I approve OT yes RS, or I approve OT comp RS.
Okay. Well, then this,
I mean,
then it's only to do with...
I'm doing it is the point,
Understood.
so.
I don't think the council president was saying that it's not
No,
done. I think he was just
no,
saying...
but just,
that
I
he'd
mean,
like
and
to
I'm
see
happy,
it in writing.
Matthew, just to be clear, I'm happy to show you what they look like, so that you could see what we're keeping track of, that's all. So you understand how it's working right now, before we make any other, not that we don't need any other change, but just so you understand what it looks
Right,
like.
I think, at my work, I get a prior approval form, I have to fill it out for my 15 staff members, it gets approved, and then when they do their overtime and comp time, then they say, this is what I got, comp time or overtime.
Right.
So it's both. You need the prior approval, and then you need this is what actually
Right.
got done.
Okay.
Yeah, okay, so let's put that on, let's put that on...
Well, I don't think we need anything to go on, it's just a
No,
process that
just like I said,
will...
I'm sorry, for the action items, so we get, or put on for, so it's on old business, we'll remember to talk about it.
Sure.
And then maybe in the meantime, if you want to stop by the office and see, and then we can maybe give us a report on what you found out.
Sure.
Okay? What else you got?
That's all for new business.
Okay. And then we do have old business, on old business, we wanted to talk about the storefront ordinance, the storefront ordinance.
Oh.
And I wanted to do it while Catherine was here.
Okay. So, when I met with...
Just so you know, we did talk about this, but we're bringing it back up.
Right. And because Councilwoman Benham was not here, I had met with my retail downtown business people who had suggested, and we came up with the thought that instead of the ordinance that had been prepared with regard to mannequins and plants, that we have a contest, perhaps at Hackensack High School or local people in town, to come up with a drawing that would be appealing, that the town would produce and put in the windows. That would be obligation of the property owner, but that's what people would be looking at. and everybody seemed to think that's not a bad idea, instead of plants or mannequins, which is why we pulled the other one. And so we could discuss having, it came up about the Ed Hopper, the diner scene with everybody sitting at the counter talking. That's what came up at our meeting, which I love, but it doesn't have to be that one. It could be something else. So it doesn't become onerous for a property owner to produce something. It could be something that we either have paid through SID fees, through, chamber fees, but we have something that we like. And when there's a store that becomes vacant, that property owner needs to use one of those. So that's what we had talked about possibly changing it to, which I thought was a great idea. His opinion about retail is the national average, which is retail is really failing for a lot of different reasons, whether it's internet sales or otherwise. So it's not unusual for a downtown like ours to have more stores right now that are vacant than we've had in quite a long time, because the average retail business has fallen so dramatically. And that was it. So the difference was rather approving that particular one that our attorney had drafted, or waiting till we could chat about it, and changing it so that it's something like that. Whether we do a contest or whether we just amongst ourselves decide on something that we think would look nice. And of course the Hopper thing is great because it shows people sitting around, waiting to be served or whatever, or looking out through the window. I guess we'd have to buy some kind of rights to that, to use it.
Ryan, the Green Team gets sustainable New Jersey points for an art collective, right, or something?
So I had to look at if it was it.
Ryan and Brian.
You know better. If a cultural or arts committee is established.
So I think it's an awesome idea, this idea, and I think we just have to decide, does it make more sense, because the high schools and the schools are going to be out of session soon, so doing a contest.
Well, it takes time for any of this to be done.
Right.
So whether we, start and talk about it with the school and get the art department involved, because they may have students that they know, we don't have to necessarily wait for school to start again in the fall. We could speak to the art teachers and see if they have any students that they think would even qualify. Now, it doesn't have to be a contest. It was just another way to draw in our partnership with Hackensack High School, but it could certainly be a town-wide thing. It doesn't have to be the high school. We might have artists who live in Maywood who would be interested in providing drawings. So I think it would be nice to open it that way. His suggestion was the high school, but I don't think there's anything wrong with, a number of years ago we put an ad in the paper to get people who were retired to build certain things that we wanted for the holidays, and the suggestion was that the number of people in town who were carpenters, painters, we got no response. But that doesn't mean that we wouldn't get response to that. I certainly think it's one way of looking at it, trying to get interaction. If it doesn't work, then we do that, or the council, we can look at artwork ourselves and say, well, this is what we'd like to see. It doesn't have to be anyone from the outside. It could be this mayor and council. So whatever. I just think it was a much nicer idea than plants and mannequins and...
I agree. That's how the idea started with we had talked about a uniform city
Right.
or something. And
Right.
putting something in the window.
And he agreed, and
that was
right.
and somehow evolved into mannequins and things too. But if they're in agreement that this uniform thing, which is kind of how it started, something that I had seen and had talked to a resident about, I think that would be great.
So
I like the involvement idea too.
we could do it within town first.
I like the town.
I like the town, yeah.
And then maybe we could do age groups, adults, children, and young adults, have like maybe, and then, there's generally 3 windows. I mean, it's not just one window, you can have
Well, once we had the picture, we have a sign company that could make it either long and narrow or tall and fat. It's the same picture, so that wouldn't be a big deal. It's so easy for everybody today with the technology that they have in producing signage. It wouldn't be an issue. So I would like to, as we said, we pulled that resolution so that we could talk about it, and I think that's a great idea. We can come up with, who's going to be involved, how we advertise it. We could do it through the Rotary, we could do it through the Chamber of Commerce, we could do it through the school, doesn't matter, because if you want to keep it to a resident of Maywood, then let's start with that, see what we get. Worst case scenario is we don't get anything that we like, and then the mayor and council picks what they like. There's plenty of artwork out there on the internet that could be used for this.
Maybe what we could do is ask the Chamber of Commerce to donate a little bit first, second, third prize, maybe, or a prize to at least the 3 winners, and then this way...
I could always get somebody to donate prizes.
Yeah, so we get them to donate, and since it's going to be in town, it would be the Chamber, I would think the Chamber of Commerce is going to affect their windows. That usually gets people, if it's decent enough monetary prize, that usually gets people their juices flowing.
Motivated.
And if they're artists to begin with, they might be more inclined to...
I think that people who care about art are going to do it because they want to do it, and they don't care about the prize, I think, but I'm not an artist, so can't address it, can't draw.
Oh, I like the idea. All right, so that's that for old business. So we're going to wait until, well, at least that one part. So we're going to wait until we come up with some kind of structure.
I'll work on a plan for
At
it.
that point, so when that's in, we'll then get that going for
Mhm.
the requirements.
I'll come to negotiate to come out of it.
Okay. What else do we have on old business? We have the...
Both Avenue parking.
Yep. We recently adopted an ordinance changing some of the permitted parking on Oak Avenue near the dry cleaners over there at Pleasant Avenue. Our intention was to be both sides of the road from the curb cut heading towards
Pleasant.
Avenue, and actually to the right as well, just for visual purposes for the drivers. It's a problem if you have those cars parked there and you're trying to come out, you have to edge out, and by the time you edge out past the one car, because the road's so narrow, you're actually in the other lane, the opposite lane, and cars are coming on, and then there's cars parked in front of you. It's a situation. So what I think our intention was to ban have a yellow stripe from the curb cut all the way to West Pleasant.
Right.
And we don't have that now.
No, we don't. And the way it was written kind of said what we wanted to say, but the issue is this is not the only street that we have that problem. If we are to do that on Oak, then you have to be consistent so that every other street, whether it be Palmer by the post office, Maywood Market's parking on Palmer, if we do that on each one and go back from the corner back to the next driveway drop curb, we're taking away a lot of parking, both for whatever...
That's the only place, well, I understand what you're saying, we are taking away parking, but I don't necessarily agree that we have to do with the other areas, because that's the only place with an active driveway on the side road, unless I'm mistaken.
No, Maywood Market is the same thing.
Oh, going up on the other side?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, that's the one that concerns me the most.
But that's that's a wider area, isn't it? Am I mistaken?
Palmer's a little wider.
It is, however, now I shop there, and we no longer can go out to Spencer Palmer. We have to go to the other one because of that driveway. Driveway should have been moved.
Right.
Different issue. Driveway should have been relocated. It wasn't. I don't care how wide the street is. If there are cars parked right up into the drop curve, you have to inch out to get out. So if we do it on one street, maybe that's one of the biggest ones would be on Palmer by Maywood Market. I think it's something that we need to look at. One, the police should look at it. And I don't think if you do one, then you're going to have people coming here and say, well, why can't you do it on my street?
Let's cross that.
I mean, there are
now we did this one already, and I think we...
No, I know, and it wasn't done the way it was intended.
Yeah, and quite frankly, it's done exactly the way we wrote it. The DPW followed exactly the way it was written.
Right, no, I'm saying they followed it.
Yeah, I think we need to just after seeing with our own eyes, I think it didn't do exactly what we were thinking, and
Which is
that's on
fine.
us. So-
And I don't disagree.
Yeah, so
All I'm
I
saying-
think let's tackle this right now, and then if there are further ones that we have to look at, then we have to look at. But this is one that is something that not only have I gotten
Okay.
dozens of complaints over, I've
So-
actually experienced it myself.
Okay, but then there's also the owners of the stores who actually park there, and their employees do, who will now go in front of houses further up the street to park, which I'm not saying is a bad thing, I'm just mentioning...
Park in my driveway if they want.
Well, then put a sign, I mean, you can start charging, Matthew.
That's not a bad idea.
Listen, I understand.
I mean, it's
The
always
good
a
news
two-way
is-
street.
The good news is that they only have to do that walk twice a day. I mean, it's not every 5 minutes, they can...
I'm
they're there
not
for
arguing the
whole day.
point,
No, I
I'm
know
just
you're not.
bringing the point.
Well,
I
no,
mean-
and I know I guess I'm arguing with them when they complain about it. I'm not...
So, and
debating
you're
with
the
you.
one they call when they complain about losing the parking spaces,
Well,
so
for
don't
the
call
time-
me when
for
they
the time
do.
being, yeah.
So just,
Don't call me.
I don't know that it's necessary to get rid of the 4 or 5 spots on the west side.
Left, east, or west, or...
West, on this picture, is on the right
West
side.
is by the...
Oh, I don't know which picture
West is
you-
by the Chinese.
Oh, you don't have the
I'm
picture?
sorry.
Yeah, it's by Dragon. Go
I only
ahead.
have the picture on my phone, I don't have it.
I think the real problem is the east side.
Yeah, and so that's 1, 2, 3, we already got rid of, we already got rid of 3 spots.
That's where you're coming out of the driveway, and now if you're trying to make a left onto Oak to go to West Pleasant, you have to inch out past these 2 cars, and
Right.
the purpose of removing those parking there was so that you don't have to do that. Because by inching out,
The problem is coming in off of Pleasant, making a right off of Pleasant. You have to cross over into the other lane if this car's
this car there as well, yeah. It's,
Well, right now, because of what we did, 25 feet,
well, now they moved in, they're in
there's
a
only
little
2
bit.
spots left.
Yeah, there's 2 spots that's kind of in the middle. So it's sort of, listen, at the end of the day, it's creating an issue that you have to inch out, and if somebody is coming south, if somebody's going south towards, on Oak, towards West Pleasant,
Okay.
you have to inch into their lane.
Just so you know the way it's more.
Yep.
DPW went to the fence line, not the property line. So
Yeah.
yes, there was 1 car, which should not be there because that was already marked, so that's 25
Well,
feet.
this is the real, these ones right here,
No, I know.
that's the real,
I know, but I'm just saying
Go ahead.
that it was only marked 25 feet from the drop curb to the fence line.
okay.
There's a little space here that nobody could park it, which is too close to this gentleman's driveway.
Maybe we should just strike that anyway, though.
Well,
Yeah.
so you know how it's done.
'Cause there's those smart cars
So
that
what
probably
we do
fit.
away with it, which is the new ordinance.
The new ordinance, what I did is I took from the corner
Right.
to the curb drop of the residence. That's 561 and 562. 561.
I don't think we need to do the west side. I don't think it's necessary. There's,
Well, there's no curb there, first of all, it's not the DOT approved curb height, it's essentially Dickey Street, not because of that, but because of what existed, it's not the 6 inch?
Yeah, I don't know that that's an issue either. The problem, because quite frankly, this car's parked there, you know, they're in the way a little bit, but the fact that you have vision now on your left, you could wait, and on your, you'll be wait until there's no cars coming, and then you can go. The whole problem is seeing, so that's why you really have to do the east
Then I'll
side.
strike west,
Just strike west.
and then I'll go from
I mean,
east
the worst
side.
case scenario is if we see there's an issue, we have to go back and do west. So
Yeah.
let's
Yeah.
do it east.
All the old hardware store should be gone.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know what you mean by that. So
Yeah.
just wanted to strike it.
This whole thing right here.
So I'm going to go
From here?
on the east side, from the curb to
From the curb cut to the center. I mean, sorry, to the light, not the center, to the light.
the plaza. Is the hardware store that's finished?
Yes.
Yeah.
I said the old hardware store.
Yeah, but you know what, you have to be here for that, so I mean,
It used to be a hardware store, everyone, before it became
All right.
fit and fashion.
Yeah, okay.
All right, and then we're going to go all the way up to the property.
So 319 will be revised to show on the east side from the corner of Pleasant Ave and Oak to the driveway of 62 Oak Avenue will no longer be permitted parking any hours of the day.
Yeah, okay, and you know, and I understand the, some of the issues, I do, I sympathize, but at the end of the day, this is a side street, and it's really close to residential, and if your business is there, and for safety issue, you have to understand, so when you get the call, explain to them, you know, this is a safety issue. I know it might be a little inconvenient, because you have to park up the block a little bit, and I apologize, but we're trying to keep cars from getting back.
As a point of information, you can no longer exit from Maywood Market onto Palmer. It's not really...
Yeah, no, you're no longer supposed to. As I said, I shop there.
If somebody complains to you, then you can say, well, you're...
Roberta?
What's your name?
While we're talking about the post office, and I know this isn't old business necessarily, but I was there on Saturday, walking on the avenue on Saturday, and the condition of the post office.
They just cleaned up.
They did?
Within,
Okay.
yeah,
I went in there and said
they
something.
are constantly getting property maintenance. The property owner of that property, and it's not the federal government
Yeah.
or the Post Office
They're right.
USA, whatever, it's a separate company. It's not any of them. It is a private owner. They are constantly getting property maintenance.
Who does, so the private owner is supposed to do the maintenance?
Of course.
Okay.
Property maintenance belongs to the owner of the property, not
Yeah,
the tenant.
It looks horrible. It looks horrible.
I don't disagree, but they just, what was it, yesterday?
Monday.
Monday. Yesterday.
You know,
They mowed it.
honestly, I think if they're...
It's one of my pet peeves, so no one's watching.
Gary, if we have to do the lawn maintenance ourselves and clean up over there, and we just charge them. Because
We can't do that unless they're already pre-warned. If somebody receives a letter and doesn't take care of it, then we send the DPW, and then they get charged for it. It goes with the property. But we have to give them the opportunity to do it on their own. We just can't send the DPW there to do cleanup.
It's a shame because it's making...
It was cleaned yesterday.
It's making the avenue look horrible. And they're looking
We're on them all the
back.
time.
Okay.
It's one of our mutual pet peeves in the office.
Okay, all right. Further all business?
Did we look at Poplar as well? Where that new stop sign is at Taplin? With no parking?
Well, it's been lined now. The signs are gone. It's been...
Where are you thinking of doing the...
We were going to do it at the T on Poplar on the west side.
What? T on Poplar on the west side. We have the sign, we just put the stop sign on Taplin and Poplar, and you were talking about the west, wait, I'm sorry, where are we now?
The parking issue is only with the signs in the middle of the street.
Yeah.
That was part of it.
And then the west, we're talking about the west side?
That was on Taplin, though, wasn't it, that they complained? The people
It was
parking too
turning
close to
on
the corner?
Well, I know I'm hearing complaints about, and this is a police issue, but speeding and just blowing that stop sign like crazy no matter what, but that's not our issue.
Sorry.
Yeah, so where, because I know people can't see this.
On the T, the top of the T.
Here, the west side.
We have that on Oak, where Bell or Grove, one of them, it's yellow there, so you can't park there. It's kind of a similar type situation with the stop signs there.
At Taplin and Poplar?
Poplar.
I'm going to have to, I can't envision
Yeah,
it right
I
now.
think
I'll take a
maybe
look
just
at it with
look at it,
Gary and
take
I'll
a look
let you
at
know.
it.
I mean, I know that
Maybe it's okay now that the stop sign's not there. I obviously haven't been there since.
Okay,
so.
all right, maybe we someone...
You just watch it. I mean, take a look at
I
it
mean,
and see.
listen, the police need to watch over there. I mean, we could probably fund a lot of stuff with the tickets that we'd be writing over there. Literally, somebody blows it all the time. I'm getting...
But unfortunately, sometimes it's only the residents who are doing it, and then you have to listen to...
I don't know if that's the case, Roberta. I mean, that's one of those areas that people turn off of the Sage Street.
Yes.
Because they don't want to hit the light, and then they just blow down
Right.
Poplar, and then make a left on one of the blocks, and then get back on Maywood Avenue. So they cut out the light at Maywood, Maywood and the city. So, and they unfortunately don't obey the rules when they're going down the road. Again, that's something we have to talk to the police department about. That's not our issue right now. There's not anything you could fix at this point. Any other old business?
Yeah, I wanted to keep something on the radar. We spoke about a couple of meetings ago with all the vacancies uptown with regards to a land use or a property fine or tax. I don't know what the right word would be for, there's some spots that have just been vacant for
I think what we were
long
talking,
time.
Brian, I think one of the things,
Rentals.
let me see if I'm remembering, one of the things we talked about was if someone's if they're vacant, maybe they're charging too much rent, and if that, asking for too much rent, if that's the case, then maybe they should be taxed on that rent, as opposed to.
So,
That was what the thought.
I discussed that with both our tax assessor and other legal authorities. You can't do that.
But we could fine them if the business stays empty, correct?
No,
If we had an ordinance.
no. What we could do is
There are programs you can do for it. They're
for what? Finding
There's
somebody
other-
if their
yeah,
property stays...
Other cities and other towns have done it.
What?
I could give you options, but there are weird things you can do. I shouldn't say weird, there are legal avenues you can take for it.
Okay, well, it was my understanding from the people I spoke to that we don't have
It's not a
that.
punitive issue, it's basically trying to get them to what?
To rent at a lower rate than they're trying to rent if it stayed on the market for a certain amount of time. They have done it in Newark, they've done it, and there are programs for it. I would have to look into it and give you a report. I know they exist, to be honest, I'm not sure.
I'd just love to see it. I'd just see who's their, constitutional right attorney.
And that's, I think that's. I can't see how it can determine when somebody
Well,
charges
I mean,
rent.
me neither.
Maybe that's someone a little overboard.
Well, I think that was what, I was not suggesting that that's what we should do. What I was suggesting was, that was just a refresher of the conversation. I was using it
Right.
to read. I was basically
And I
taking
know
back the
that,
record,
right, but
as
I
I
did
tend to
in
do during my
fact
day job.
talk to some people, including our attorney, and others about that, and
This is an effort to not have these empty shops on the avenue.
which is
And
part of why
that's the
retail is
discussion was.
dying
Yeah. So,
throughout
I mean,
the country.
it's born out of a desire to see our avenue look the best as possible. I don't think we're trying to punish anybody.
Beautiful new murals.
But what we are trying to do is look for ways that maybe, look for reasons why they're staying vacant. Like, could they possibly be charging too much, asking for too much rent? And is there maybe a way to review the process of, what is the market asking for, getting at this point, and what are you asking? If you're asking $3,000 more than what the market rate is, then maybe there's some, hey buddy, maybe you should ask less money.
Didn't we say also that we were going to maybe look at the zoning on Pleasant and see if what we could do, adding a third floor or something like that?
I know that we had spoken to the planner who thought that the ordinance now is inclusive enough that it would attract a mix of people. I'm not 100% sure I agree with that.
See, what we
Can
gotta watch out for is adding that third floor, and then somewhere down the line, they can't rent it out, and they are losing money, and then they come to the planning board and ask to be able to make that into a rental, an apartment rental.
Okay,
And
guys,
you don't want that.
I would prefer if we continue this conversation in closed session. It's one of the things I need to speak about later with regard to COA. I would just suggest that we don't continue that part of the
That's fine, that's fine. I mean,
conversation right
We're
now.
not making any plans, we're just,
I think broadly speaking, though, what we're really looking to do is to find a way to assist people who own property there in getting renters to come in. And part of that was looking at the zoning ordinance to see if there was something else we could include that wasn't already there that might make us a destination as compared to a location.
Right.
Look, I mean, we get a lot of drive-by traffic, but it would be nice if people from other towns, other areas of Bergen County, and we do have some establishments that do that.
About
where
4 of
you
them.
have to go there.
People want to go to something.
And so that really, I think really the whole intent, and I don't want to speak for anybody else, but the intent was, can we create an environment where we compel owners of those properties to
Right.
bring in tenants that will benefit Maywood as a whole, destination, not location. And I know that putting in the vacant window dressing is a great idea. The other thing that we discussed briefly, and maybe we'll discuss it again later, would be requiring buildings that are like the bakery, the old bakery. I mean, the thing's been dilapidated and looking abandoned for years. Putting an ordinance in place that says, hey, look, if you don't complete your job, if you don't complete that work, the outside of that building has to look like it's occupiable and finished. You can leave the inside vacant, we can't force you to do that. We can make the outside what we're all exposed to. Because I think what that will do is it will begin to make the area look more vibrant, even if you have some of those empty places. I would be more likely, as somebody investing my money, to move in next door to a place that looked like it was complete, looked like it wasn't abandoned, as compared to some of those places. So I think that was what we were really talking about.
Okay. Well, there are a bunch of ideas out there. I don't know one specific. Figure it out.
We do have a SID meeting coming up.
I'm sorry?
What is the meeting?
SID meeting coming up, right?
Yeah,
I think it's the Wednesday.
27th,
It's a Wednesday, correct? 27th.
27th, 27th.
I think it's a
One of
Wednesday.
those. I just got it today as a reminder, I don't remember.
All right, well, unfortunately with the SID, it's the shopkeeper, but
Perhaps
not the property owner.
have some suggestions to, I think we all have the same goal.
Yes.
Which is populate downtown, bring people to our town. I'm sure owners want people there, so I think we all have the same goal. Maybe there's something that we can
At the last planning board meeting, I discussed with a few of the members, we didn't have time to discuss it at night, but discussed with a few of the members, that we do want to review our ordinances to see if there's things that, like the sign ordinance, there's something that we can do that's not going to be onerous to somebody who wants to start a store when they have to go to a board meeting for a sign that conforms, or maybe a sign standard of anybody's got to some of the more upscale municipalities in the county. Well, you go down through those streets and you don't see a Dunkin' Donuts sign that's in flashing, backlit plastic. You see more decorative and artistic signs, like CVS's. Some of these places have a design standard that you go in there and it looks beautiful as compared to a box store. And I think that's really what I was going to talk to the board about. We're just looking for that.
Updating our sign on
Anything that we could do. These are the people who sit there, 2 meetings a month and hear those land use applications and hear all those experts discussing. Maybe they're going to be able to bring something to the table and make some suggestions.
Well, please bring anything you find out over there, bring to our attention.
Absolutely.
Okay. Any other old business?
One last thing. On Spring Valley Road, there's a crosswalk to the park in the middle of Spring Valley Road as you're going. It's, what's the cross street there? What's another street? Anyway, Memorial Park there's one crosswalk in the middle, and it has a flashing light. But it is, first of all, it's a 25 road. People don't often drive 25 even on Spring Valley Road at that area. And so I don't know if there's something more that we can do, whether like literally have a stoplight for pedestrians or even do the flashing.
I'm missing where you mean.
Spring Valley Road?
There's one crosswalk
On the opposite
At
end
the
of the
park.
park from the dog park.
by the parking lot.
By the parking lot.
Okay, now
Coming up to
we have the crossing guard over there. Yes, I know. Now I know.
Okay, Bison's Alley, I think. That's where the crossing guard is.
Yes.
Correct. Okay, so what are we talking about?
I don't know if there's more that we can do. There's the flashing lights there already. I know some towns will literally put like a stoplight that people can activate when they push a button. Not that we really want to do that. If we wanted to try the flags there, I know everybody kind of laughs when I bring it up, but other towns are doing, pedestrian flags or stop signs that they can cross the street with.
I forgot the town I was talking about, but I took a picture.
Maybe that's the place that we do it to start.
I don't know what people want to do.
I'm happy to take a look at it. I'd like to talk to the captain from the police department about it to see what kind of issues we've had.
What town have you seen those in, the flags?
The flags, I've seen...
You know, the one with the yellow, the orange flag?
Yeah, the flag
Pick it up and you
downtown
drop it off to
Westwood?
the other side.
Westwood.
Downtown
Right,
Westwood, like they're
That's
being...
where I saw it.
Maybe it's a good thing they're cheap.
Yeah, the bricks.
Yeah.
Planted the bricks.
Well, they were just, someone left the flags there. I don't know, like, they left them there, I didn't know if anybody wanted them.
It'd be funny if it was the same lady, too. You go with the bricks.
Probably just the one with the bricks.
We need a Borough Maywood stamp.
Yeah. So...
Have them explode with blue ink when you get too far from the crosswalk.
Yes.
As an aside, in another town, a flashing light was put up for a pedestrian crossing. Nobody crosses there. And there's a homeowner who can't sell his house because there's a pedestrian sign that flashes all the time. I've never seen anyone cross
Maybe the
there.
flags.
So it's kind of a...
People definitely cross it there, because it's the only crosswalk for a long ways from Briarcliff. That whole neighborhood.
Those
can go
flags
to
might not,
Memorial Park.
that might be the place to try it.
The other one has those flashing signs that you push the button, and on either side of the road, you get these, flashing yellow
Right.
signs. I actually thought it was like a blasting zone, they were about to blast. Yeah, certainly slow people down.
I mean, all these things are something to look at to see whether or not, it has a place.
Okay.
That's where that fence is, right? That means...
I hesitate to ask, but any other old business?
Could be back like...
Progress.
Okay, we do have a closed session.
Whereas the Open Public Meeting Act of PL 1975, Chapter 231 permits the exclusion of the public from a meeting in certain circumstances. Whereas the public body is of the opinion that such circumstances presently exist, and whereas the governing body wishes to discuss COA and personnel, minutes will be kept, and once this matter involving the confidentiality of the above no longer requires that confidentiality, then the minutes can be made public. Now therefore be resolved that the public be excluded from this meeting, and be it further resolved that the mayor and council of the Borough of Maywood do not envision that they will return to open session after the closed session, but reserve the right to do so.
Is there a motion to close?
Motion to go into closed
Is there a
session.
second? Second. All in favor?
Aye.
I want to thank everyone that came tonight. Thank you all.